And when you saw yourself on the big screen,
It was really weird, for sure.
Were you able to separate and not say, I'm embarrassed, that's me, or I wish I hadn't said that?
I was. I mean, it still felt like I was watching me, but my family was like, yeah, it feels like I was watching a different person. You know, my mom was like, that doesn't feel like my son. And I was like, oh, glad you feel that way. I did not see that, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, there was... I wasn't really separated from it in my own mind. I felt like it was me, but you know, I'm glad it worked out.
Welcome to This Train, the podcast, where we talk about all things related to the making of the movie This Train. Today's special guest is Thomas Reger, who played the part of Tyler. My name is Jack Lugar. I'm the writer and director of This Train, and I'll be your host. Welcome to another episode of This Train, the podcast, where we go back over all the things we've done to make the movie This Train come to life as it approaches its opportunity to be distributed and to share it with the world. Today, my guest is Thomas Reger.
Hey, Jack. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. It's hard to believe it's been 2 years.
Yes, it is.
Since we shot the film.
It's been a while.
So I'm getting older. Well, we're both getting older. I'm getting more gray. You're getting more handsome, I guess.
Oh, thank you.
Right?
Yes.
But yeah, so let's start with this. I first met you when you were a student in my speech class.
Yes.
Your favorite college class of all time.
Oh, yeah, not even close.
Yeah. And so you were at that time a senior in high school.
Yes, I believe so. Yeah, would have been senior. Yep.
Senior year, and you are not a traditional high school student. You were homeschool. Do we call homeschooling traditional now?
I don't know what it is. It's homeschool. It's something.
So part of the homeschool process, a lot of you guys take college courses.
Yeah.
In advance, build up credits, which high school students do in general, anyways, I guess. But at that time, we were trying to remember whether it was spring semester or fall semester, but it was somewhere in that year prior to the school year prior to us shooting the film. And my recollection from that class, you did very well in the class. That's my recollection. Good student, and
not something you would imagine to be an actor and play a meth head.
Yeah. You as I always refer to you, pretty straight-laced kid.
Yeah.
You follow the rules. They're on time. You know, doing your work. I mean, all the things we want in a student.
Right. Yeah.
So, I guess I'll go back. I'll put it on to you. You knew me as a speech teacher, although I talked about teaching film and television in the class some. What were your recollections?
I mean, you were just a professor at that point. The only time I remember really getting to know you was after J.C. Crawford Williams was like, hey, your old speech professor wants you to audition for a movie. And I was like, oh, actually, I remember him. You know, like, I don't know. I actually don't remember if I knew that you did this kind of thing, but it didn't surprise me because I knew you were in that realm. I knew you were in that world. So
yeah.
It's exciting.
I do talk about it. I'm always trying to recruit students to come to our program and not leave what they're doing, but if they aren't happy with what they're doing. But so I do talk about it, and I usually draw correlations to some of the things we do in that class to film and televisions, or at least reference shows and so forth. But that's where it really comes down to it. As I tell the story, we had cast somebody else in the part of Tyler, and then about 4 weeks out from production, maybe. No, I guess it was about a month and a half to 2 months out. He had sent me a text, and he had gotten into a camp program with the Center for the Performing Arts, which is they do standard songs, the standards, American Songbook, I guess they call it.
So he outgrew you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's pretty. Michael Feinstein is the director of that camp program, and it's pretty prestigious. Kids come from all over the U.S. So he sent me a text saying, I can only do the second week, which didn't work because we'd already cast Julia as Susanna, who we had to schedule around her schedule. So we were kind of back to the drawing board, and I was kind of like, oh gosh, what are we going to do? And yeah, so I think it was a text from
J.C. Williams, yeah.
saying, hey, you should have Tommy Reger audition. And I'm like, Tommy Reger,
no way.
Thomas Reger, that kid, I don't know. This is supposed to be a messed up kid, and I knew you had been in the homeschool musical Sound of Music.
Yeah. Very different than
which
other project that you had.
High school projects and are hit and miss. And then there was the homeschool.
Right. Yeah. They're really
which I didn't go to see that one, but I went and saw one recently, and actually they did a very nice job.
Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, I saw Beauty and the Beast, and thought they did a very nice. I was very impressed with the performances. So
they do a great job every year.
Yeah, homeschool. We have to recast our vision of those of us who are outside of homeschool have to recast our vision of what homeschool is. But anyway, I was like, well, I need to audition anybody and everybody. So even though this kid's pretty straight laced. Let's do it. And so I was looking at my book of kind of when things happened, and it was June 1st. We were shooting in July 9th, and so it was June 1st when I had you read, and there were a couple other, one other guy that came in and read, and a couple others who sent some videos in. My recollection on kind of that read was we were like, okay, that's pretty good. Now you hadn't done any film acting before.
This is completely new.
So it was one of those where I don't know if he has enough experience, if he's never done anything in front of the camera, can we get the right performance out of him or not? But as Ed and I remembered, there was one moment that really stood out to me that kind of sealed the deal in some senses. For Ed, it's your Daleville accent.
Yeah, I heard that part on the last podcast. I thought that was really funny.
But for me, it was the chicken shit line where you improvised it.
Yeah,
and I thought that improvisation really captured the character even more so than what I'd written in some senses. If that makes sense. It was you had some connection, even though you're not a meth head, to his attitude, his feeling toward the Ricky character. And so I think that was one of the moments where I was like, and we obviously changed the line, we added that in. So that was that was probably the moment for me, and we did make the decision that night because I thought we had several good auditions, and so part of it was timing. Were you available? And we asked a lot of you timing wise. What do you remember about that audition?
The audition specifically, like the first one?
Yeah.
Not much at all. I remember a lot of the production process was just kind of uncomfortable, for reasons you've mentioned. Like I was just this random 18-year-old kid that you just kind of pulled out of your butt, and I'm there, and I just I would show up, I'd do my little Tyler bit, make a cryptic joke about my dead dad, and then I would get in my car and I'd leave. You'd say it was a lot of time, but it really wasn't. Like this has been your life for 3 years, and for me it was just kind of on and off. I'd show up, do my lines, and I'm glad it worked out. Like I'm glad that you found my character compelling, because truthfully I feel like it was a very new experience, and I'm surprised, just as surprised as you are, that it worked out like it did. So
right. Well, yeah, I think I will say that probably played into your ability to do a really good job with it. Actually,
Thank you.
That you weren't overthinking it. You were just, taking it as it comes. And film acting is hard because it's stop and start, right?
Yeah.
And you don't get a chance to really get in a flow sometimes, or we're just doing 2 or 3 lines from an angle or something like that. But yeah, you did a great job in the sense that you were. We gave you the wrong time to show up the first day, actually. So
I actually don't remember
you
that.
Don't remember that?
You didn't even have to mention it.
Oh, sorry. Well, I should have kept that to myself. The things I remember, which I have a strong sense of not wanting to let people down.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I can tell. Yeah, I feel like I feel so guilty because I feel like you have felt like I didn't want to be there, because like I would show up and you would kind of sense my discomfort, like I don't know if he wants to be here or not. And I want you to know this was actually a really fun process, and I'm very glad that I've gotten to be part of all of it. So
yeah, I don't know if I thought you didn't want to be there.
Yeah. But there was like one time you said something, you're like, are you enjoying this? And I was like, I don't know, actually. I was like, this is a lot, you know? But I did, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and production is a love-hate experience, I think. It is for me. I mean, I dread, even as you saw me setting up for this, right?
Yeah.
It's not my forte.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty about filmmaking, is that you bring people on to cover for the areas that you're not strong at. And so, but I've done a lot of acting in my years, and acting in front of the camera is always the most nerve-wracking to me, because of the restriction. Yeah. Right. You're on stage. You know, you got maybe your head to hit the spot, but there's somebody operating the spotlight, and so if you miss your mark, they just shift it over, right?
Exactly.
If you miss your mark in film, you're out of focus.
Right.
We got to do it again. You miss your mark, you're not in the light. We got to do it again. You know, so there were times where we did several takes.
Yeah, a lot of patience required.
And so that would it makes it challenging, more challenging than I think a lot of others. And you know, you're trying to be emotional and
you can only do that so many times before you don't have any more tears to cry. Right.
You're out. So So okay. Well, and I was looking at we were looking at notes just of I was trying to find when we auditioned you on June 1st. What day did I actually let you know? And I feel like I sat on it for probably a little too long. I think I kind of strung you out there for a couple of weeks trying to kind of finalize other things and probably not focused on what I needed to focus on. But this is the plot, the plight of an actor, is that you're at the mercy of directors, and casting directors and producers, and you're they're not communicating, and so
I filled the time. It was all good.
I think that was also the beauty. You were probably like, well, I just went and auditioned, no big deal.
Yeah. I was like, God, the movie kind of blew me away with like the production standards, because I was like, JC was like, do you want to be part of your speech professor's movie? And I was like, sure. Like, we shooting it on iPhone, and so I showed up and I was like, wow, this is going to take a whole lot of effort. And that was kind of something that increased my patience, is like, this is a very drawn out process, and it takes a lot of effort, and it's not just it's like, it's not a blockbuster obviously, but it's not
just
shot on iPhone. Exactly.
It's I mean, we did a micro budget film. I mean, you donated your time, and I very much value and appreciate that.
Like the opportunity.
But yeah, so as Ed and I went back over, we didn't make a perfect movie. I mean, there's no such thing anyway.
Right.
But and we know a lot of the flaws. And if I could go back, I would love to go back and do it. I'd love to go back and shoot some scenes. I'd love to go back and re-edit some stuff. But overall, we found a compelling story, and the compelling story comes to life because of people like Ed and you and Julia, and everybody else that was involved, pouring in the emotion and film acting too. I one of those. That was good.
Try to get that off the mic. I don't know if I succeeded. Fun little podcast bit.
I'm gonna turn the gain up on that one, actually. Film acting is one of those things. A lot of times, I think you either have it or you don't. You have a natural ability, and I think that's one of the things that we discovered, even beyond the audition, but really when we got into shooting, that you had a natural ability to bring a realism, unlike stage acting, where you have to be big and broad and convey a lot to an audience from where they are sitting in one spot, right? We instead, with film acting, you have to be natural, realistic, right? You can't be big and broad, and then we get the camera right up in your face, and then
you got to not look at the lens.
Yeah. Trying to maintain all that. So just was, a compliment to you.
What do you think Jameson's doing right now?
What do you mean?
Pastor C says he's in heaven.
He does, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, but what does that mean? Like, what do you do in heaven?
You're asking the wrong guy.
You ain't got no thoughts?
Ooh, I got plenty of thoughts.
Well, let's hear them. Well, I think he's in a rock band. Shredding and smashing guitars.
That's heaven?
That's just what he's doing. You believe in heaven?
So let's look at the production process. And so we shot for 15 days essentially. You were there for probably about half of them, maybe 7 or 8 days.
Probably about that.
And then we, of course, shot a few things after those days. What do you remember about the production process?
Good question. I remember just like the little funny things that happen for sure stand out the most. So many like random funny stories. I remember, what was that one like cafe that we shot at? And like I was just being such a tall person and I'm like trying to lean on the desk as like we're getting our order taken.
Yeah.
And after like the first couple shots, Roger's like, what's that banging sound? I'm like, I don't know. And like we do another couple shots and Ed's like, it's your knee, dude. Like stop smacking your knee. I was like, oh dang, that is it, you know? So like things like that, like hooking the boom mic with the fish hook or something. That was the worst day of my life, but it was definitely memorable. It was super fun. And then like we figured out like at the end of the day that I was like wearing the wrong shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So lots of little ticks in production.
We were only halfway through that shoot and you looked down and you went, this is the wrong shirt.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about, the ticks of production, the patience required. That was one that was on me for sure.
And that's the challenge of doing an independent film where we're putting more on you as an actor than just acting.
Right. Yeah,
like you all of a sudden became the wardrobe person.
Right.
I mean, we took pictures and we said, this is your wardrobe for this scene. And I would sometimes go, don't forget, put on that shirt or whatever. But then we all go do our things.
Yeah, we go from one scene to the next in the same day and just, little details.
So it's totally unfair to ask an actor to manage their wardrobe.
I mean, for this level of production, not bad at all.
But that's what we had to do, right? And so, so we had some wardrobe mistakes, not malfunctions. But really, I mean, that was the least of my problems in editing. I don't think I ever, because we went back and we just called it a day at that point because we'd already had a pretty rough day.
Yeah.
And we came back another day and captured the scene in the right wardrobe and it all worked out.
Went a lot faster, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if I should tell you this now. This has always been something that stuck out. There's a scene that my tattoo is just not in at all. I don't know if you noticed this, but it's like when it was extremely visible. Like I can't believe, like you've seen this movie probably 500,000 times. It was like when I was in the bed, right? And the pastor comes up to the house and he's like, where's Tyler? And I look out the window and I'm pretty sure my arm is in full view as I like pull the curtain open.
Okay.
There's just no tattoo. Like lots of little details like that. I was like, oh, I sure hope they didn't see that. But
yeah, so we must not have, for some reason, it worn off. We hadn't reapplied it.
Yeah, and I mean, like there's things like that in every movie. That's
the thing,
a funny thing.
The thing about the tattoo, and that was kind of, I think about 2 weeks before, and I was like, I was talking to Ed, he should have a tattoo. Of course, then the tattoo we got didn't really apply very well.
Yeah, and it wore off within like 24 hours.
Didn't quite work. But really, there are so few shots that it's in that, it did not become
a central focus point.
Yeah, I never, like, no one probably would even know what it is.
Yeah.
Even though it has meaning to the film. I guess anybody's watching this podcast and now can watch the film.
And I know what it is. I was like, oh, actually, he has a tattoo. I didn't even see that. Yeah.
Be on the alert for tattoo.
Yeah.
But, no, I mean, of the many things that I would see during editing, the tattoo was not one of them.
Okay, good.
Ed and I talk about sunglasses at some point, and that was one of my biggest just pet peeve or not pet peeve.
Like
it was a nemesis.
They were on one scene and then you were off your head on another.
Yeah, or on in one shot and off in the next shot. Yeah. And for the most part, because of the reflection in the camera, Ed would normally take the glasses off anyways, but sometimes they weren't always taken off at the same time. And major films have the same problem when you get to glasses and hats and things like that. So there are these little moments where you're like, that's and there are other moments where I was able to at least edit around it a little bit.
Yeah.
Which
is impressive considering how many shots you had. Like, it felt like we had a lot of shots, but honestly, I feel like you probably wanted more. Like you had those over the shoulders, and you had like, just like of the people talking. I don't know what the shots are called. A clean shot. Yeah. But then I'm sure there were others that you wanted to get done, but like time just didn't allow, which is impressive that you can edit, what you did.
Yeah, we were lacking in a few shots, cutaways specifically that I wanted to get. Sometimes we didn't do them right, as we've talked about too. When you're doing an independent, and every film goes through this, because every film, the more time you take, the more shots you get, the more money it costs. In some senses. And so there were cutaways that I wish I'd had, or maybe an extra clean shot, right? A close-up clean shot of you, so that I could, edit around something else. But yeah, for the most part, all those pieces came together pretty well.
Yeah.
All right. Funny story. So yeah, you talked about your worst day on set. What was the best thing about it to you?
Specifically, I can't think of anything like that was like, oh, that was amazing. But just like the opportunity in general, like I was surprised at how it went really fluidly. Like, just kind of a random thing that happened. Like, hey, you get to audition for a movie, and then I actually got the part, and then I see it through, and then it makes it to Hollywood, and I get to see its premiere. It was really cool to just see and even be such a small part of it. Like I was a pretty prominent character, but like comparatively, I spent very little time on the film to just see like you and Ed primarily and John nurture this thing and, get to be a part of it. That was the only great thing, that I can remember specifically. There were a lot of fun things that happened for sure, but that was the main takeaway, just to be a part of it.
Okay. Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. I don't know for you, maybe once in a lifetime opportunity, or you may do more. I think you certainly have ability to do more, and if you wanted to, but obviously it takes effort to pursue it.
We'll see. Yeah.
Any filmmaking happening at your college campus?
I wouldn't want to be in Cedarville's filmmaking if that was an opportunity. I don't know if they have it or not. It's definitely not their forte, but
Yeah. Okay.
I'd watch a movie, I guess. No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't. Cedarville's is a good place, but probably not for movie making. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are the future plans then for you? What's your next thing?
As far as filmmaking, or just like
in life? Yeah.
Infantry, actually. In 2 years, I will commission as a second lieutenant in the Army, and infantry would be my top pick. Engineers would be second. Aviation, armor, third and fourth. So we'll see.
Wow.
A lot of stuff to get used to. Just got 2 more years. Next year's going to be a big year with CST, Cadet Summer Training, and I'll qualify to be an officer there. And depending on GPA, fitness level, all kinds of stuff, that's how I get ranked against other cadets in the nation, and then they'll put me where they want.
Yeah.
They'll take my opinion into account, but I'm kind of at their mercy in a sense. So
very cool.
Yeah.
Career? You're thinking maybe career?
Definitely not. Just okay. Like 4 years is the minimum, and then I have no idea what I would want to do after that. Okay. There might be some travel involved. I don't want to live outside of the States for too long, so I'd kind of be here and there, and then back. So it'd be a really good resume builder for sure.
Yeah.
So I have no idea. There's a lot of things that I'd want to do in the future, but that's the only thing that's right in front of me.
Fairly clear for you right now.
Pretty clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. That's very cool. Big sacrifice. Appreciate obviously your commitment to service too. So, what are your final thoughts about the film? Obviously, you came to the premiere at the Heartland Film Festival.
Yes.
And got to see yourself on screen. How did you feel about that experience?
I was nervous for sure showing up, and then it was just kind of surreal because it would have been in like a year prior. When was the premiere? Was it last?
It was in October of 23. So we
Okay.
finished shooting in July of 22.
Okay.
Right. And so a little over a year.
Yeah, like
to get
over a
everything
year.
done.
And yeah, so a long wait for me. I wasn't really, thinking about the film a ton in between after we were done filming and, the time I got to watch the premiere. So it was kind of surreal. Like, oh yeah, that's what my life was a year, almost a year and a half ago. And, just to see it completed was kind of crazy, like I said, not a blockbuster film, but definitely like a high level production, like really good shots, really good soundtrack, just a really good job overall from everybody that I got to work with. So
And when you saw yourself on the big screen,
it was really weird, for sure.
Were you able to separate and not say, I'm embarrassed, that's me, or I wish I
Yeah,
hadn't said
I
that?
mean, I
or-
was. I mean, it still felt like I was watching me, but my family was like, yeah, it feels like I was watching a different person. My mom was like, that doesn't feel like my son. And I was like, oh, glad you feel that way. I did not see that,
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I wasn't really separated from it in my own mind. I felt like it was me, but, I'm glad it worked out.
So have you told friends at school that you're a movie star? Do they know that you're big
not really.
big time? They don't know yet?
I've told a few people, if it were like a huge movie, like, I don't know, Superman, then I'd be like, yeah, I was in that movie, but Hellcat, this train,
Yeah.
So I think they've seen the trailer, at least the guys that I live with, like
Okay.
my roommate. He's like, oh, that's cool. But,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you can maybe have a viewing party when it comes out.
Right. That's what they said. I said, maybe not,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course you got to. Yeah. You
Yeah,
got to live it up, right?
Yeah.
Because then you'll be military and you won't be able to have any fun.
No more fun. Yep.
All right. If you could do it again.
I would,
Yeah.
for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we'd cast you again for sure too. I
Great.
was really proud of how you took that role on,
Great.
and what you did with it. I mean, it's we were all tightrope walking without a net, just exploring how we were going to get this done. And
Yeah.
and
I think you guys did incredibly for your first shot at it. So
everybody pulled together. So, all right. Final words. Final thoughts.
thank you very much.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Really original there.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, no, I mean, and again, that's it. Making a film is a group project, and
Yeah.
and so I always, when it comes out of my mouth and I say my film, I'm like, sometimes I don't know how to describe it another way, but it certainly is not just my film, right? And so people such as you and Ed and Julia, my wife Elizabeth and John and so many other people, Roger, that gave, days, weeks, months to the project. It's everybody's film in that sense. And so anyway, well, thank you for joining me and Thomas for this episode of the podcast, just exploring Thomas's experience because, at one point we were pretty panicked on who we were going to cast as Tyler, and definitely, I believe, some divine intervention brought Thomas into our experience. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of This Train, the podcast. Please check out future episodes where I talk to other members of the cast and crew. Until then, take care.